to taxes, same-sex marriage. In 2002, Nevada voters approved a constitutional amendment defining marriage as something that's between a man and a woman. Now the state legislature is considering a measure that could give Nevadans the opportunity to vote again on this issue. Senate Joint Resolution 13 was initially aimed at repealing Nevada's limitation on marriage, but it was amended prior to its passage in the Senate late last month. The new wording on the legislation would require the recognition of all marriages regardless of gender, and that's a move that's resulted in a loss of much of the resolution's early bipartisan support. A second amendment added protections for religious institutions and clergy members who don't want to perform gay marriages, but still there's a lot of opposition among high conservative and religious groups. The Nevada Media Alliance spoke with sponsors, opponents, and people whose lives could be changed by a new vote on same-sex marriage.
Meredith Tanzer and Yvonne Allen have been dating for several years. They got engaged on April 29th.
That's our life. Well, we've actually known each other for probably close to 7 years now. Yeah, about 7 years. We've been officially together for closer to 2-3 years. And when I first decided that I wanted to court her, she would not let me. And I was only allowed to take her out to coffee. And so within a month, we went to the Starbucks on California and Virginia literally 30 times in a month. Sometimes we would go there 4 times in one day, just because I was only allowed to take her out to coffee. So I would take her out to coffee every spare second I had. So
we did go to a lot of coffees.
A lot of coffee dates. And so finally after...
Tanzer and Allen have been closely following Senate Joint Resolution 13 throughout this legislative session. On March 26th, they attended a Senate committee meeting during which legislators heard the first public comment on the resolution.
And, you know, the other thing is people talk about, you know, that it's destroying the sanctity of marriage. And in all reality, do you ever spend time, significant time, thinking about what your neighbors are doing at the same moment that you're on your recliner watching CSI? You don't really consider it.
They said a lot about how in 2003 or 2002, when it was to the voters, how that's when it became between a man and a woman. And I wasn't old enough to vote yet then. I didn't become old enough till 2003. And I'm old enough now, and I'm loud, and I have a lot of friends. And so I'm really excited for it to go on the ballot.
Assemblyman Elliot Anderson is the youngest member of the Nevada legislature. During a May 9th committee meeting, he expressed what he believes are the sentiments held by a younger generation of voters.
I've changed my mind. I also noticed with interest the Washington Post ABC poll that 81% of voters under 30, my generation, are pro-freedom to marry. I hope that, like me, and an overwhelming majority of my generation, you support giving the people a chance to change our mind. Because when it comes down to it, this is what this is. It goes to the ballot in 2016, it passed this session and next session. What are we afraid of? Let the people have another say.
Senators Patricia Spearman and David Parks are 2 of the primary sponsors of Senate Joint Resolution 13. They agree that the outcome of a revote on Nevada's marriage laws would likely reflect a change in attitudes between the generations.
Honestly, I think if we took a vote today, it would pass. I really do. Not only has the population increased, the population has changed demographically. The generation that's coming up now, they see the argument that we are having about whether, you know, marriage should be equal across all genders. They see that the same way that our generation saw civil rights. They're asking, what's the big deal? You know, they're people.
Opponents of the resolution have said that they believe a public vote on same-sex marriage should be preceded by a ballot initiative, like the one that led to the 2002 constitutional amendment. Janine Hansen is the president of the Nevada Eagle Forum, an organization representing conservative interests in the state.
Well, because we passed marriage between a man and a woman overwhelmingly by the people in the state of Nevada, the legislature is circumventing that. But because it's in the Constitution, they could simply overturn it and say that that's repealed, which I think they might have more success in doing. I think it's going to be far more difficult for them to pass this radical legislation that they've put forward. And then they could do it as they have done in statute. They could legalize same-sex marriage in statute instead of putting it in the Constitution. But that's not the route they chose.
Senator Ben Kiekeffer was the only Republican to vote in favor of the resolution when it passed from the Senate on April 22nd, in a vote of 12-9. Some of his fellow Republican legislators have cited religious objections to same-sex marriage. However, Senator Scott Hammond says his own objections are of a strictly secular nature.
When I stood up on the floor and espoused my position on this, I gave one reason, and that one reason was procedural. And I think that if they want to change it, they need to go through the same process. There will be some who will disagree with me and say this is perfectly legitimate, and it is. There are three ways to amend or to change the Constitution, amend the Constitution, and this is one of them. But because of the way it came from the people as an initiative, from the it's a grassroots movement. I believe in order to overturn it, it also has to be a grassroots movement.
Paco Poli is a journalist who has been reporting on issues concerning the LGBT community for more than 20 years, and he believes that a revote on same-sex marriage would draw heavy campaign costs from both sides.
It will be a more expensive race than any race that we've ever had in the state, including the Angle-Reid campaign. And I think that the opposition will use the fair ads again. That this will affect your children. It has nothing to do with children.
The potential impact on children has been a major talking point from both sides of the debate, and is a driving factor behind the Nevada Eagle Forum's opposition to the resolution.
The best place for little children to grow up is in the ideal family of a mother and a father. Now, that's not always the case. We don't always reach the ideal, but that's what we want to hold up as the standard for the best place, the best incubator for happy children. And that is what is destroyed by this legislation.
However, the involvement of children has not been one-sided. Several children have testified on behalf of both sides of the debate, including some who spoke during the May 9th Assembly Legislative Operations and Elections Committee meeting.
Some people think that our moms should be happy being domestic partners and don't think they should have the right to get married. We don't agree because it is discrimination, pure and simple.
And who can I talk to when I need anything? My two loving parents. And who will be there to see me walk across the stage next month and receive my honors diploma? My two gay, loving parents who have been together for 22 years.
In order for a revote to take place, Senate Joint Resolution 13 must pass both houses of the legislature during this session and again in 2015. That means the earliest that Nevadans would be able to vote on the issue is 2016. For the time being, Tanzer and Allen say they'll focus on each other, and of course the potential revote 3 years from now.
I'm just going to keep loving her, basically. One day it will be legally recognized in the state that I'm allowed to love you and I'm allowed to marry you. And in the meantime, we just keep spreading the word and keep spreading education and reminding people over and over again that there's nothing wrong with us. We're in love with each other.
Reporting for the Nevada Media Alliance, I'm Scott Jenkins.
Senate Joint Resolution 13 just passed a committee vote yesterday afternoon. It's expected to pass during the session. It's already cleared the Senate. Now it has to pass the Assembly before beginning the process all over again in 2015. The Nevada Media Alliance is a public-private partnership. It's a partnership between students in the journalism school at the University of Nevada, Reno, and professional media partners like KNPB, and we appreciate their contributions. One more tax issue, the one